Herkese tekrardan merhabalar. Umuyorum çok güzel bir kahve molası olmuştur. Ufak bir duyuruyla başlayacağım. Artı 90 bizleri hediye çekilişi için standında bekliyor. Kahve molamızın ardından Lexi ile devam edeceğiz. Kendisi SEO ve içerik pazarlaması kullanarak etkili PR kampanyaları yaratmaktan bahsedecek. Now I would like to introduce Lexi Mills.
Hi, it's great to be here. I've had such a wonderful time already, and I'm really excited to be speaking to you today about PR stunts and how they work with content marketing. We'll go back a little bit. My job has largely been to get coverage and links from places like this for a whole bunch of clients. So they span all different industries, from all the bathrooms, debt management, all the way through to music. And I've done this at SEO firms, PR firms, and in-house. So I kind of know what it's like to be in the different shoes, because there are different challenges with each place. I now run an agency called Shift 6, and we work with a mixture of people, from agencies, investors, all the way through to individual businesses. So today I'm going to talk you through some of the consistent truths that I've found about successful PR stunts. How do you talk people into them? And that doesn't just mean clients, that means your bosses as well. And how can we use AI to help us inform how we get great content PR stunts? And then finally, I want to talk to you about how can you make things easier. There are some shortcuts, and there are some things that just have to be done in a particular way. So let's get going. Consistent truths. Firstly, the people you think are going to be fun aren't. You know, all the big whizzy fandango companies, I've worked for Red Bull, I've worked for Virgin Atlantic, I've worked for people that you think, oh my goodness, they do cool stuff. Those aren't the people that sign things off. Those are the people that have a very, very strict brand code and are very, very reticent to do anything exciting. If you've got boring clients or boring industries, trust me, you're in a much better place to have fun. Now, I couldn't talk about PR stunts without mentioning Richard Knight. He was the guy that inspired me into all of this. He owns an agency called Metal PR, and I was lucky enough to have a chat with him one day. And he told me about when he was working for the Sci-Fi Channel. And they said to him, you got to get us some press. So this wasn't a link building thing, it was just press. And he thought to himself, okay, so what am I going to do? How am I going to generate something interesting? And he was like, I'm going to hoax some kind of alien landing. Okay. He's like, but I'm going to do the best one ever. Because something half-hearted rarely works. So he went and he found a model maker. And this is the model that he got made. And he said to him, make me a little alien and pop it in a jar. And then he said, I want you to put this code on the foot. He didn't tell him what the code meant. He just said, put the code on the foot. He then went about trying to mix some liquid that smelled horrible, and that's what he filled the jar with. He then bought an antique newspaper, so an original old-fashioned one. You can get these on eBay, they're super easy. And then he went and he got an old piece of string that he actually took off the back of a picture frame, and he wrapped that round the top of this. And then he got fake dust, and he put all of this in a box, covered it with fake dust, and he rang up a couple of journalists. And he didn't lie to them. He said, hey, we've had this thing dropped off at our office. It's almost certainly a hoax, but it's a really good one. You've got to come have a look at it. And he did exceptionally well. He got global coverage for something that wasn't actually true. And what's really interesting is the detail he went into. Remember that number on the foot? That corresponded to an alien crash that had been reported in the news years and years ago. So if someone actually did their research, there was something legitimate to this story. Now, PRs get a really bad name because people think we just make stuff up. But the real trick to really good PR stunts is not to fake it, but rather to make it. And that's what he did here. He made a truth. And we did something similar for Depop a couple of years ago. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Depop. It's very addictive. You can spend money on there very quickly. It's a bit like a mixture between eBay and Instagram, and you can buy things and sell things. And we were working with them at the same time that this story broke. Does anyone remember this? Okay, so we woke up, we saw this coming in on the news, and we were like, well, this dress has to exist somewhere. So we went off and we found the dress. Then, while someone was finding the dress, we called through all the news stations and all the publications in Britain, and we said to them, hey, we've got that dress. It's on its way back to London. We will have it by the end of the day. Do you want to cover it? And they said yes. We called the client, and we said, you need to get this up on your website, ready to sell. And it's not like they needed an image, right? They were all over the internet, so they could just put it up. But the key thing here was speed. Speed is what made this possible. But speed is only possible if you have taskmasters. There was no possible way that I could have called all the news stations, got it set up on the client side, got that dress, and got it over to all the news stations on my own. It just wouldn't happen. It's not possible, which is why we need taskmasters. And this was really true when I was working with HTC. It was just before Apple brought out their gold phone. Let me be quite clear, we were first. And ours was solid gold, because we thought if we make a solid gold phone, that makes it a lot more exciting and interesting, and gold was a trending color at the time. Now, if you've ever tried to gold plate a phone and you think it might be easy, I would like to completely debunk that. It is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. NFC technology does not work through gold plating. There's a reason no one else made a solid gold phone. Anyway, as part of the launch, we decided what we were going to do is we were going to launch it at a big music awards and give the winners one of these phones. Now, we still don't have a phone, and we get a phone call saying, we have 2 winners. Frick, what are we going to do? We don't even have 1 phone. So we sent someone down to the gold plating factory, and we made him stay there day and night until the phones were made. We had 1 person, our taskmaster, and he had 1 job, just to hound the gold plating company until we got them. And we ended up getting absolutely huge amounts of coverage for this. But we wouldn't have got it if we didn't have the phone. And the key thing here was that we had something that was solid. But it was a luxury item, and we had to make it believable. Because the really important thing with PR stunts, and this was actually a lesson from Richard Knight, is that you have to be able to walk all the way around them. There can't be an untruth, a hole in it that makes it look like PR. So in order to achieve this, when we took the phone to journalists to review, we took this dude with us. He's a big, scary-looking bodyguard. Doesn't really say very much at all, ever. We also put it in this case. This is a bomb-proof case. Nothing says luxury like a bomb-proof case. And then finally, we wouldn't let anyone touch the phone unless they wore white gloves. The reality is that we were selling this phone for a lot of money. But it only cost us a couple of thousand to make, and we were sitting in the office just throwing this around, playing catch with it. But we created this theater around it that made the story feel true. It made it feel luxury from beginning to end. And that's critical. Now, you can't talk about great storytelling without talking about Steven Spielberg. And he has a beautiful quote. He says that if you can tell me an idea in 25 words or less, probably going to make a good movie. Well, this is true for PR stunts as well. If you can't tell an idea quickly and easily, you've not got it right. It has to be simple. You have to be able to hold it in your mind. And there's a really good trick for doing this. You just go to a coffee shop or a pub and you talk to people about your idea. And the objective is to get someone to have this kind of reaction, preferably coupled with these kind of words. If you get that, you're onto a winner. If not, you stay in that coffee shop and you drink caffeine until you are completely caffeinated and you've got it right. But so often it just comes down to a tweak of words. And the thing is, you don't get those words right sitting in a boring office or in a boardroom. You have to go out and be around the sort of people that you're trying to target. Now, I'd also like to move on now to talking about how do you get people to buy into this? Like, how did we get people to give us money for a solid gold phone? Well, the truth is, you've got to treat people like frogs. I'm not sure if you're aware of the analogy, but if you apparently put a frog into boiling water, it'll jump straight out. If you put it into cold water and slowly turn it up, it will cook. We need to cook the people that sign off on our budgets. I'm going to show you how I did that. I was working with bathrooms.com for many, many years, and I'll show you some of the stunts we did. But before we even suggested any, we got them loads of really unfrightening coverage and links, because our remit was largely links, even though we got coverage as well. And after we'd gotten all of this, I was like, hey, Kate Middleton's having a baby. Let's launch a Windsor collection bath. Pretty simple idea. Product page, miniature-looking bath, not complicated. How could they say no? It was too easy. And we got a bunch of coverage. And the key thing here is that we stuck to the structure of their site. We didn't ask them to build anything new. There wasn't loads of different things they had to go around and do. It was very simple. You have product pages. We want to put a different product in it and put it on the website. And then we had this baby bath. I mean, we just ordered it online. It was like $200-300. I then went out and bought a red ribbon. Because I don't know if you remember, but with baby George, he didn't come for ages. The press were lined up outside the hospital with nothing to do. Well, I didn't want to be in the office that day. It was a beautiful day, and I didn't want to sit around just waiting for this project to continue. So I just wrapped up the bath with a bow. I wrote a letter. Turns out I have horrible handwriting. It took me about 8 times to get that letter looking pretty. And we printed a T-shirt that said bathrooms.com. And we just walked up and down in front of all the photographers. And we got loads of interviews. But if I had asked the client, can we make a bath and walk up and down outside the hospital and try and get coverage, he would have said no. But we didn't. We said, can we put up a product page? And we did it step by step. After this, I was like, we've got a warm frog here. What do we do next? Well, I was lying in bed, and I realized that people can't spell bathroom suites. They get the spelling of it wrong fairly often. So I was like, I'm going to buy bathroomsuites.com. And I just bought it. It's like $2, you know, whatever. It seemed like a funny thing to do, and it was late at night. But what I want to draw your attention to is that I made the client the owner of the domain, and I made it public. Because remember when I said PR stunts have to be truths? You have to make it a truth from beginning to end. Well, this was the beginning. Then I went into their office with this nasty-looking drawing. And I said, I want to make a website that sells a bathroom made of suites. I've already bought you the domain, so the one less objection, right? And I showed him this horrible picture. But I didn't ask him to say yes. So often we're desperate to get a yes. We don't need a yes straight away. This wasn't time critical. You just ask for consideration, and you leave them to boil. But I'd started off with a pretty big idea. You know, the client was left to boil, got into the idea, and then I was like, oh gosh, how am I going to make a whole bathroom? Where am I going to store it? What am I going to do with it? This is going to be really expensive. But the thing is, it's much better to start with a really big idea and make it smaller or reasonable than it is to start with a small idea and try and make it interesting. I can imagine that loads of you have ideas that you've gone and you've tried to make them more interesting. It just doesn't work that way. This is a one-way street. You have to go from big to small, not small to big. And that's when I remembered that this is their hero bathroom suite that they sell, right? They love this. This picture is made in CGI. So, because any white products, typically on any product site, are made in CGI because they're really hard to photograph. So I was like, oh, so I could just take the CGI files and do this to them. Now, it's not a great-looking image, let's be honest, and images are really important. But this was the next iteration of it. Not too bad. But I'm not a CGI expert, and images are so utterly important. So I hired an expert. And he made this image. Now we're really talking. And the final image looked like this. Now what you'll see here is we've put details about the suite, about why we did it, so the misspellings. We've put some interesting chocolate facts, and we've also written a letter from the owner talking about why they've done this. So we've got loads of content on this site. And then we went out and we did a launch. And we did a launch and we gave everyone free chocolate. Who doesn't like free chocolate? And this was all embargoed briefing, so no one could talk about it until the day of launch. And then we did an official launch to UK media. And then we went out to trade and luxury. Now you might think, oh, trade and luxury aren't good for PR. Not massively, but they're really good for links. And then after that, we went international. Because, again, not great for them getting the coverage that, that converts to leads, but it converted to links. And then we went back, because I called the Daily Mail like 4 or 5 times, and these guys kept saying it wasn't for them. By the time we got to the international phase, they were ringing me, asking for the images and the story. I mean, I was sitting there thinking, guys, you've had this like 5 times. I've rung you repeatedly. But we didn't give up. And after we got the Daily Mail to take it, we went back to everyone else that had said no. Because journalists will follow suit. Once something becomes a trend, you can pick up all the pieces from people that may not have linked to you before. And why not do some social media with it? It wasn't in our budget, it wasn't our targets. But we did it because it was easy. But the key thing here is that we didn't put all our eggs in one basket. We weren't trying to get the stunt to fly on just one launch. Multiple launch phases are so critical to stunts. And if you can split up all of your projects into multiple launch phases, you'll be so much more successful. And this project, I mean, these were the results at the end, but over 133 pieces of coverage. And we don't count low-level links. So anything with like a DA below like 27, we're not counting. This did exceptionally well, but it wouldn't have with just one launch phase. And if you really want to do a stunt on a budget, you need to know your clients. If I didn't know that my client's website was built in CGI, all the white products, this would have cost a fortune. But this whole project, beginning to end, like the actual cost to build it, was less than 5K. Like the website design, the event, all the promotion, it was super cheap. But I want to highlight something here. In a perfect world, we want all our links going directly to our site. But, sorry, bear with me. This is not ideal, right? And what we had was a separate domain, and we were filtering the link equity through. This is not as good as this from an SEO perspective. But do you know what is worse than this? Oops, sorry guys. Is this, getting nothing at all. The integrity of the project meant that it had to be on its own domain. So although we watered down the link equity by having it go through one site and then to our client's site, we were still getting way more links than we would have gotten if we'd put it on their own site. So sometimes it is worth having a separate domain for particular projects, especially when it comes to stunts. We'll move on one more. Sorry guys, a little bit of trouble with the clicker. Now, one of the things that I want to highlight here is I thought I was promoting a story about literacy. And I was like, oh my goodness, I get to do something good for the world whilst doing PR SEO? But the reality was that everyone covered the fact that it was a chocolate bathroom, a big expensive chocolate bathroom. And that's really challenging because it means that really, and I've seen this consistently across all projects, if something is fun, if it is playful, it will be more successful than something that's serious, which means when we're doing research or any kind of project, we need to keep that in mind. And there's a great phrase about this. Harold Evans was one of the biggest editors at the Sunday Times, and he said, tickle the public, make them grin. The more you tickle them, the more you win. And that is true for PR stunts. So if you're looking to do any kind of stunt, make sure it's playful. Now I'm going to keeping with the thread of bathrooms. We had a conversation with a client, and he said he was hiring in Germany, customer service people, but he was really struggling to get a second person. I was like, oh, well, we can do some corporate PR around that, talking about your growing business and the challenges of it growing internationally. It's like, we'll get 1 or 2 pieces. I was like, what's the name of the guy that you're hiring in Germany? And he was like, Hans. I was like, sorry, Hans is looking for Gretel? It's like, frickin' brilliant, I'll have that. And we went and got a couple of pieces of coverage because it was cute, it was quirky. We were playing to that idea of making something a little bit playful. But as with all clients, he didn't say, thank you, that's awesome, come up with something else. He said, I want that, but 3 times the amount of links. Okay, well, I want a unicorn, but in the context of this, I'm going to have some ducks, because there's no way I'm getting 3 times the amount of links without ducks. So we built this. We decided to hire a duck, put up a website, exactly the same format as the chocolate bathrooms. This one was actually hosted on their site, all the same kind of details. But the thing is, kind of smells a little bit like PR, doesn't it? Like, it's not true. Who would hire a duck? Well, it is true when you put an advert in a newspaper. And an advert doesn't cost very much. So when we're trying to make that story feel real, we just placed an advert. And we announced the advert. Isn't that bizarre? But it works. Then we went out and we made a short list of ducks. And we invited Solent News to come and take photos of the ducks when they were being tested in the bath. Now, a little bit like the gold phone, where I didn't realize it was going to be really hard to gold plate a phone, did you know that ducklings are only cute for about 48 hours max? Like, they start off really ugly, and then within 48 hours, they go from like ugly to cute, and then ugly again. So we had the whole team sat waiting to photograph these silly ducks because I'd come up with this silly idea. But it wasn't impossible. If I'd known at the beginning, I probably wouldn't have done it. But it was perfectly fine, and we got some great images. We put them in a Dropbox. We made it really easy for press to get to. So we'd done 3 phases here. Phase 1, announce the project and the shortlist. Phase 2, show the ducks being tested. And then phase 3 was announcing the winner. Now, I like fairy tales. So we made the ugly duckling win. This is our ugly duck, which I actually thought was a problem. But we ended up getting a really great amount of links for this project, and this wouldn't have happened if we hadn't broken up the phases. Now, by this point, I considered my client to be a fully cooked frog. And if you fully cooked a frog, you might as well go all out. So I walked into the client's office and I said, hey, you know how your website normally looks like this? It's Valentine's Day. I've made a friend. They're called Butlers in the Buff. I would quite like your website to look like this on Valentine's Day. This, by the way, this mocked-up image, I made in PowerPoint. I didn't have Creative Suite from Adobe on my laptop at the time. You can mock things up just in PowerPoint. And he signed it off. And we ended up putting up this product page. This is what went on their homepage. And we got a whole load of coverage. Cook your frogs slowly. You'll get to put naked butts on your clients' websites. Let's have a little chat now about looking at AI. I'm a big believer in outreach, like manual outreach. Get to know your journalists, get to know your targets. But we can't deny that AI is happening. In fact, this is all the areas that publishers are using AI at the moment. They're using it to tell them what to cover, mainly. And if you look at the trending items across all websites, have you ever noticed that everyone's writing about the same stuff? It's because over 50% of content that they're writing, they're being told to write by machinery. They're not even choosing their own editorial calendars to a large degree, which means we need to be keeping on top of these trends too. And the great thing is, it's actually not traditional PRs, but it's SEOs that are far more adept at doing this. And it should be core to your strategy, because if they have a 50% quota to fill of trending terms, you want to be in that, not out of it. And you can look at things like Kickstarter. If you look at the trending items on Kickstarter, you will realize that it'll say items that are coming up. And it's an early adopter community, so you'll know that that's going to be bigger later on. You can also go to conferences. Just look at all the keywords that are coming out of top conferences related to your clients. Those are the keywords that are going to trend in the media for those subjects over the next year. And what you're looking for, ideally, I always put these terms into Google Trends, nothing super complicated, and you're looking for terms that go up and to the right, because there will be certain terms that repeat year on year, Christmas, Valentine's Day, but those are pretty competitive. But an emerging term that's going up and to the right, then you know that the journalists are going to be told to cover it more and more by the AI. And this is exactly what I did with Finder.com. They are a price comparison site, and like most clients, they had a competitor page that they wanted to beat. And it was this one. And you can see why when you look at the metrics. I mean, this page just builds links all the time. And they were like, we want you to build us a better page than this and do it with a PR stunt. It's like, okay, but it's quite competitive and no one knows who you are in America right now because they were launching in the States and American press like to cover well-known brands. So I said to them, okay, let's think about something different. Going for gold would mean beating that page. Going for silver would mean finding something that we can make as big as that page, but doesn't involve having to beat a pre-existing page. And the last page was about credit card debt. So I was like, okay, well, you know what? Impulse spending has pretty much the same search volume, and it's still connected to your core market. And we knew that IoT, Internet of Things, was trending up. So I was like, okay, let's put the fact that we know that AI is going to cover IoT together with going for silver instead of gold. And we came up with this. The first IoT handbag. It opens and closes to stop you spending. The strap vibrates as you're walking near a shop that might be one of your kind of peak spending places. It locks shut at your peak spending times. It's a stunt. We made a good page about it. We made a video about it. We did a survey to go alongside it, and we rolled this out across the US, Australia, and the UK. So we got a bunch of links, and we just made the survey and the figures relevant to that geography. The international side of this meant that we had one project, one set of images, and we got to roll it out everywhere, which meant the cost of the project went down. And actually making a robotic handbag isn't as expensive as making a gold phone. We then went out to all of our press, but I'd done something else with this. Because I did all the tech press, all the national news, but this gentleman here is called Jehovah. Jehovah is a fashion designer. The one place that I knew that we could get a lot of links is if we could put it in the fashion pages. And let's just think about this. If we're getting in the financial advice pages, the tech pages, am I actually helping anyone who needs financial advice? Like, nobody who needs financial advice if they're reading about it. People who need financial advice are people who are reading about handbags in fashion magazines that cost $5,000. So actually, by making it a fashion item, we targeted the core market that they serve. They give great financial advice. And I got to hang out with Jehovah, who's like completely kooky and absolutely lovely. In the end, we got complete global coverage and links for this project. But it's because we started off with not trying to be the best, but to be different and the best at something else. And we targeted a market where they really needed to be met. So let's have a little last look at making some impactful things easier. Do you guys have cookies on your desk at work? I do, or I used to. And the problem is I would eat through the whole jar within a week. Like, you just stick your hand in there, right? My whole keyboard was completely filled with chocolate chips. Like, it was horrible, and like sometimes my vowel keys wouldn't work. Not fun. And then I thought about it. I was like, what if I move the cookie jar? What if I put it in a top cupboard so I have to leap up and try and get to the cookies? And suddenly I had half the amount of chocolate chips inside my keyboard, and I was eating half the amount of cookies. I was like, okay, well, if it works by moving something further away to make me not do it, then I need to move certain things closer to make me do them more often. And what I didn't tell you about the handbag is that when I was making it and launching it in New York, I was staying in a hotel. And it arrived, and it looked like this. Because the outside of the bag had been designed in New York. The inside bits had been made in London. And I had to sit in a hotel room with a glue gun, assembling what really looked like a bomb. Not my idea of fun, and not easy. So when I went to look for a new office, I thought, okay, how do I make it easier for me to make things? How do I bring that cookie jar closer so that I will make things more often instead of feeling uneasy in hotel rooms with glue guns and pliers and knives? So we got an office with a workshop. And you don't need a lot of things to make a workshop. You need a corner, a table, a couple of little bits. We have a 3D printer. They're super cheap. But we also know that images are critical. And the ability to take in visual information means that you can tell more to an audience very quickly. So it's not just about getting coverage, it's about telling more stories. So I was like, we're going to need a photo studio. And initially what we had was just a photo tent, a pop-up tent, really easy to put up, an absolute nightmare to put down. Like you kind of have to wrestle it and swing at the same time. But it costs hardly anything. But we found a place that had both a workshop and a photo studio. And the team go in there all the time now because it's right outside our door. It's right there. And that means they can produce great images like these for Instagram, for bloggers, for competitions, and for press without having to bother the client, charge them loads for it because it's all there. It was about bringing that cookie jar closer. One of the other ways to make things easier is to not try and talk clients into it yourself. I've fallen prey to this many times. But I realize that sometimes they don't need to hear it from me, they need to hear it from real journalists. So we built out a journalist consulting board. And it's pretty easy to do. You call a bunch of journalists, you agree a standard fee for them feeding back on your ideas. And then it means that no one has to actually listen to you. You have an independent voice. And that independent voice means that you get sign-off so much easier because clients don't have to believe you. We don't need the glory of them believing us. We need them to sign off on great ideas so that we can get great results. And it means you can do things with speed and ease, and there's less arguments. A couple of months ago, I was speaking to a Crunchbase journalist, and he showed me something kind of interesting. These graphs. What you're seeing here is there is a direct correlation between VC investment and search. Well, that kind of makes sense, because if a topic is trending, the AI is going to make media cover it more, so then it will trend even more, which is why most of these graphs go up, up, and then a sharp up. That's partly AI influenced. Well, I was like, well, if there's a direct correlation between the two, tracking what's popular through Google Trends is actually quite laborious. So I thought, well, I'm going to get my whole team trading. This is eToro. You don't have to use this, but you get a fake portfolio with a fake amount of money in it, and you can trade. And all the team have it on their phone. And when they see their money go up and down, and it's fake money, but fine, they notice what's trending. So instead of looking at search to see what is going to trend financially, they're looking at financial trends to see what's going to trend on search and therefore feed into the AI. And everyone's got this on their phone. So they can sit there and be flicking through their phone and just learn about what is trending really, really quickly. And it's a lot easier and a lot less focused work than having to sit at your laptop and go through the trends on Twitter, on Kickstarter, and all the other areas. Now, news agencies are one of my final ways to make things easier. I don't know if you ever get this, but sometimes when I call up a journalist, they don't really want to speak to you. And it's not cool to speak to someone that doesn't want to speak to you. It's just not fun. And there are loads of news agencies out there. And the thing is, these guys get paid by publications because you sell your story into them, if they take it and write it up, they will send it to publications that they have established relationships with. And if the publication publishes it, they get paid. So they're a lot nicer. And all their contact details are available online. Like, why would you waste your time? And I mean, waste. You still have to speak to journalists. But speak to someone who wants to speak to you. And then you don't have to feel like Elmira. My final piece of advice came from a new Kickstarter client that came to me about 4 months ago. Now, I've done a lot of Kickstarter PR in the past, and it wasn't that hard, because Kickstarter was kind of cool. Just the fact that you were on Kickstarter made you interesting. But this client came to me, and I was like, being on Kickstarter is actually kind of uncool now, and journalists don't want to cover you. So I was like, I'm going to have to come up with a new strategy. The one that I used for all of these guys isn't going to cut it now. And so I started looking at all the top campaigns, you know, the ones that made the most money, and it's not hard to find. You just go most funded Kickstarter, done. These two guys came up. And what I saw was that they were all using affiliates. PRs don't traditionally think about affiliates. And actually, content marketing teams, the ones building and promoting content, don't tend to either. But there's something very interesting here, because there's a great affiliate for Kickstarter called Kickbooster. They tell you exactly how to do everything. They've got a great website. And they're friends with all of these guys. All of them. Well, that's pretty much what you need to fund a Kickstarter. And actually, 14.9% at a bare minimum from my outside math, so I don't have inside data on this, was coming from affiliates. That's pretty important. And in fact, in many cases, it was close to €500,000. And this is just based on data that I can see in the public domain. I'm pretty sure that figure is double that in reality. Well, if it works for Kickstarter, it should work for other content like PR stunts. And the great thing is, this coverage actually has integrity. When I spoke to Gizmodo about their affiliates, they said, oh, yes, we do use affiliate links. It does boost the priority of the coverage up. But we won't cover anything we haven't actually reviewed, like in person. So they have to have a solid item to review. So it's still got integrity. So it's not like you're being dishonest, all the publications are. But I didn't want to just have to use Kickbooster. So I went and saw my friend Sean. And he used to work for Gizmodo for years and years. And he had told me a lot of information about Gizmodo over the years and how to pitch to them and what they wanted. And then when I saw him, it turns out he was working at Skimlinks. I was like, dude, what are you doing there? You're like one of the world's best tech editors. He's like, no, I have a full team of writers. We don't just send out links. We have a full editorial team. And he was like, send me everything you've got. If it's consumer tech, we'll cover it. And I was like, but not all of my clients are using affiliates. He's like, well, our coverage has to have integrity. So it doesn't matter if it doesn't have an affiliate attached to it. I was like, oh, this is a whole new group of people I can pitch to. But I wanted to know who I'm hunting for, because Skimlinks is great, I can pitch to them, but I want to go direct to the publications. And so I researched it all, and these are the lists. If you start looking for these names at publications and you pitch them, even if you don't have an affiliate link, they're going to be inclined to speak to you. And they're very similar to news agencies in that they kind of want to speak to you because they make money from speaking to people. They're not completely bombarded like the rest of the press team. The thing to be aware of, though, you need a personal CRM to manage this. We use BuzzStream. You can use anyone you want. But all the media databases like Corkana and Cision, they don't have these people in there. This is a fairly new thing. It's only been evolving over the last year or two to the size that it's at now. So you're going to have to make your own lists for this manually. But it's not that hard. You just do a site search for the publication and put those words in, and the name will come up somewhere. So we've had a look at quite a few things. We've looked at consistent truths, how do you boil frogs, leveraging AI, and how do we bring that cookie jar closer and make things easier? But I want to leave you with a couple of points. Cook frogs slowly. You will have so much more fun, and your clients will like working with you more. and taskmaster your projects. If you want good PR stunts, you have to be willing to put a taskmaster onto the individual parts. Otherwise, it will come crashing down because they so quickly become intimidating. You know, great idea versus a frightening idea are very similar sometimes. And finally, kick your birds out the nest. Not one of the projects that I showed you today flew on day one. The chocolate bathroom was over a week of getting no coverage. But because we had checked it with journalists, because we had done all the right things, we'd made the story completely three-dimensional with no holes, we kept pushing. But if you think one launch day and one launch attempt is going to be enough to make a big project fly, you won't be successful. You've got to be willing to hammer at it for at least a week, if not two. Thank you so much. It's been lovely speaking with you. Bye.